Hello! So this is going to be the production breakdown of my song Sunfeel. So I'm going to go over the different guitar parts and then all the different synth layers that I added to it, the percussion, the bass, and then even some of the pads that I used. I made them myself actually by sampling a note, which is quite cool, and I find that pretty interesting. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this, or maybe pick up some little helpful hints and tips, possibly. So yeah, let's just start with how the song began. So this song started off as a backing track that I made for a video that I filmed for a friend for their yoga business. And so it really just consisted of two parts, and it was pretty repetitive, but that was fine for the video because you're more kind of watching what's going on, and it was just a nice kind of ambient background for the video. So I'll play the two parts so you can hear them. The first part is pretty much based on 3 chords for the most part. I'll play the second part now. So this is where I've introduced some new chords. So it starts with the same one. I'm just adding a little variation with my little finger, sliding that up by 2 frets. So now this is kind of like a minor chord shape. And then back to the same shape that I've used for the first chord and the second chord. And then I go back to the second shape there. So the 4 chords. Those were the 2 parts, and they just looped over and over, and that worked fine for the video that I composed them for. But as a song, once that repeats over and over quite a few times, it becomes a little bit boring for the listener. What I decided to do was listen to the 2 parts I had at the moment and decide, would that be a verse, a chorus, a bridge? And so what I settled on was this part. That was going to be the chorus of the song, and the other section, it naturally builds, so that would be perfect for a pre-chorus. So from the beginning, I had a nice pre-chorus and a chorus, so that just led me to try and create a verse for the song. With that part, the way I developed it, I took the chord progression that I used in the chorus and I varied the rhythm that I was playing. So then when I do get to the chorus and we just start kind of hammering out all them notes, it creates that nice variation. If we look at the section as a whole, the first 3 times it's the same chord progression. The C chord, kind of like an A sus2, you go into a G chord. But on that fourth time round, I wanted to add some variation. Kind of like that C chord again, going to the G chord, and then pretty much like a D chord, going from a sus2, D major, sus4. So chucking in that slight variation on that fourth repetition just helps to kind of round off the section, and it kept it nice and varied. And so I think what helped me to get away with the first 3 repetitions is the melody I'm playing in between the chords. That was changing every repetition, and hopefully it doesn't come across as being too monotonous or repetitive. So once I developed that verse section, I knew I had enough parts then to create a song with it. And so I always find with myself, as long as I have at least 2 sections that fit together and they're slightly different, then yeah, that can be the beginnings of a song. What I wanted to work on next was the intro. You could call it lazy, but all I've done here, I just took the kind of first half of the verse and just played that on its own. And I just removed a few notes here and there just to keep it nice and open, to leave some room to kind of build upon when the verse does come in. So once I had them main guitar parts recorded, that's when I like to start thinking about layering it up. With this song, I wanted to add a little melody to the verse. So what I'll do, I'll just solo the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar. And so for that lead, really all I done there, I was listening to the melody that I was playing with the verse, and I pretty much just worked out how to play it an octave higher up. And then I thought that kind of filled out the sound there, because the guitar is quite busy in the verse, so I didn't want to add any extra melodic content, just because then it might start to sound and feel a bit overcrowded. So really that second guitar, the lead guitar part, is just reinforcing what the main rhythm guitar was playing. For the pre-chorus, the second guitar part I added into there, it was more just chords, just to help kind of beef up what the rhythm guitar was doing. So I'll just play the pre-chorus guitars. There's a lot going on with the main guitar, so I don't want to add too much and make it overcrowded. So yeah, that second guitar in the pre-chorus, just some heavily reverbed little power chords essentially. And now for the chorus of the song, what I wanted to do here, again, keeping with this theme of not overcrowding or making the song too busy, I decided on just double tracking the main guitar, really. So panned left is the main guitar, you could say. And then all I done for the right side, just to kind of make it sound nice and wide, I just recorded the same part. And so with them two together, you just get a nice wide, kind of big sounding guitar. So with them guitars, because they're panned left and right quite a lot, it makes it sound nice and wide, but that also leaves some room in the middle of the mix. And so I did want to add a lead guitar element to the chorus, but again, I didn't want it to be doing too much at all. So the lead guitar, I'll just add that in. So just playing a couple notes here and there, and it's heavily reverbed to kind of push it a bit more towards the back of the mix, so it's not kind of too in your face. And I think just adding in them couple of notes, it just adds like a nice kind of sparkly texture to it. And again, because it's very sparse, I feel like it doesn't overcrowd the already kind of busy rhythm guitars that we've got panned left and right. And then for the second repetition of the chorus, the lead guitar, I just added some slight variations to it. What I'm doing there with the lead guitar is pretty much the same as what I'd done in the verse. I was just listening to the melody I was playing with the rhythm guitar, and I just played it an octave higher up. Again, just to help kind of reinforce that melody that we've already got going on with the rhythm guitars. Let's have a look at some of this kind of synthy elements that I added into the song. From the beginning, actually, from the intro, have this nice little synth sound. It's a preset from Reason, and I may have experimented with these kind of 4 options here to kind of sculpt and change the sound a bit. But it's perfect for what I was looking for. I wanted something to be more in that higher register and just kind of create this wash of this kind of sparkly vibe to it. And that is actually playing, yeah, it's playing the same melody that the guitar is. So in general, with all the elements I'm adding to the song, I'm really just reinforcing what the guitar is already doing. Just because with this style, with the finger picking, there is a lot going on with the guitar. So I feel like if I was trying to add in, different melodies or anything too complex, let's say, I think the song would just get too busy. So that was a nice little synth that I added into the intro there. And then I brought it back for during the pre-chorus. And so if I play that with the guitar, so just adding an extra texture to it really, and just to kind of thicken up the sound that we've got there. And another thing that I like to do all the time is I love to add in reversed elements into it. And so what I would have done here, I would have just played one note from the synth and I would have recorded that and re-sampled it in, and then you put it in reverse. So by doing that, it really just helps to kind of transition to different sections, or it kind of helps to bring in a new element into the song. For the second verse, this synth is just getting a little bit more busier, but again, it's going to be following the melody within the guitar. So as you can hear, loads and loads of reverb, and I even automated the amount just to create almost like a swell and kind of like a wash over into the pre-chorus that follows it. I'll play that synth with the guitars. So for the most part, it's following the guitar, except from this little section here. And so I think my thoughts with this was both the guitars, they're playing a long sustained note, so there is a nice gap there. And sometimes with gaps, it is nice to add a little something in there just to fill it. And so I just came up with this little melody just to kind of help fill that gap there. And I think another thing which made me want to do this is because in the first verse, there was just a gap there. So bringing the second verse in, the guitars, they're not doing anything different. So I was thinking, how can I add some variation into this? Because a lot of the times, if you just use exactly the same thing that you've done for one verse or one section, and you just copy and paste it, that's where it may start to get a little bit boring for the listener. So it's always just thinking about what little things can I kind of sprinkle in just to make it slightly different. Let's move on to what I really enjoyed just experimenting with is some pads that I made myself. I just played one note with loads and loads of reverb, and I dropped it into NNXT, which is just a sampler within Reason. What I then done was expand the range of that note. So you can hear, you might start getting some artifacts coming in, because I'm pretty sure all it's doing to make it change pitch is it's changing the length of the sample. So whenever you shorten something, that'll increase the pitch, and then if you stretch it out, that will decrease the pitch and make it lower. That was one little pad that I added in there, because my thinking behind it was I'm definitely not against adding or using presets within whatever program you're using. But I was thinking with this, it would be cool to add in some of my own sounds, just to make it a little bit more unique. Again, like listening to this, it doesn't sound super unique, but at least for me, I know, I kind of just sampled a note from my guitar and dropped it back in there. And what I find cool by sampling guitar notes onto a MIDI keyboard is a lot of the voicings that I would play on a guitar, I would definitely not play that on a keyboard, and vice versa. So I find that that's quite cool, and it kind of opens up a lot of room for experimenting. Another pad that I made was what I've called here blow chords. And so let me just solo that and we can listen to it. So I made this in a very similar way to this other guitar pad that we just listened to. It's just one note that I've sampled in. I made a guitar track and I drenched it in reverb, so much reverb, loads of delay onto it as well. And pretty much with both of them, made them almost 100% wet. So I'll just play some notes from this. So I just think that sounds so cool. While I was working on this song, I watched a video with Rob Scallon, and he was with some other guitarists who would sit out on a pier where it's super windy, and he would put the chord shapes on with his left hand, and he'd angle his guitar until the wind vibrated the strings, and then that's how you could hear the chords. And so then I think I just thought, what happens if I just blow across the strings to see if that would work? And it did. So that's how I got that sample. Let's see if I can recreate that now. So it's super quiet. And does it sound that much different from just plucking the strings? Maybe not. But yeah, so that's what I done. Blew across the strings, held a chord shape down, and dropped that into the NNXT sampler. So then I had this very cool pad sound that I could experiment with. So just a very cool texture to add into it. So if I bring in the other guitar pad, yeah, they're just two different textures which I think work nicely together, and they create a nice bed for the guitars to sit on top of. Yeah, I'm very happy with how that turned out, just because I wouldn't think that was a guitar. For the next element we can look at can be this synth, which is the same as the intro synth, only it's mixed a lot louder so it can cut through the mix. So I'll just play the chorus. So this synth here, I brought this in to reinforce what the lead guitar is playing. If I bring in that lead guitar, so in a way it's almost adding like a delay effect to the guitar, but it's not the guitar we're hearing delayed, it's the synth we're hearing. And so I like that just because together it almost does kind of sound like one cohesive sound, only you have these different textures from the sounds. So I thought that was just a nice way to help the lead melody cut through during the chorus, just because this is when the song's getting to its most energetic. So with a lot of my songs, I always like to, or most of the time, I'll add a real bass into it. But then also I love to add a sub bass to it as well. And that's kind of coming back from my dubstep days when I first started making music. Yeah, it was just dubstep. Dubstep was huge at the time, and that's what I wanted to make. Ever since then, I just love sub bass in there, just to really layer up what the bass is doing, and it just makes stuff impact way more. And so that's something I've stuck with. What we've got here, this is going to be the bass for the verse of the song. And so that bass is just following the root notes and the rhythm of the main guitar in the verse. to fill out that bass sound, I've got a sub kick patch that I've made myself, but it's basically just a sine wave pretty much. And what I'm doing here, I'm automating the release time of it so it can mimic what the bass is doing. Then if I put the bass in, it just really helps to fill it out and add that nice deep low sub bass that I love. A lot of the times during the verse, I'll use a sub kick, but then when I get to the chorus, just to help with the energy and make everything impact, that's when I'll go to just, basic sine wave pretty much. And it will just have a nice constant sustain to it. So I'll go to the chorus here. The sub, that's just following what the bass is playing. And that's pretty much it for the bass guitar. A lot of the times just following the root notes of the guitar, and then the sub bass is mimicking what the bass is playing. So that just leaves the percussion, and what we've got here, we've just got a few layers, nothing too extreme. What I love to use is this SSD sampler, so it's the Stephen Slate drums. And I'm just using the free version that anyone can get hold of. But I just think it sounds very nice and it's been made very, very well. So that's hi-hats, they sound very nice, and when you just open up their preset, everything's panned very nicely, and it just sounds very real, which is the vibe I was going for. And I try and play this in on my MIDI keyboard just so that you can get the difference in velocities there. So the more kind of red ones, they've been played with more velocity, and the kind of more peachy ones, not as much. So again, that just helps to emulate what a real human would be playing when they're on the drums. And then for the kick and the snare, so this kick is one from a sample pack that I got years and years ago. And this is, that kind of like rim, kind of wooden sort of snare sound. And that's what I'm using for the kick and the snare in the verse there. And these blue MIDI notes here, these notes I would have played in, but I've muted them. I reckon I probably listened to that, liked it, and then maybe once I got to the chorus, I thought, oh, I haven't given myself enough room to kind of build up the drum pattern. So that's quite nice, coming back to it and then muting some elements just to leave some room for when you do get to the more kind of energetic part of your song. You have the room to add in all that extra stuff. What I always like to do, I will always duplicate my main drum sound, and then I'll add loads of reverb to it, just so I can then copy over the elements that I want to add a load of reverb. And so for me, coming back from the dubstep days, the snares, you got to drench them in reverb. And then what I like to do, kind of what I done with the synths, I love loads of reversed elements in there. The most common ones I use will probably be a cymbal sort of hit, because that just really helps to transition to the next section and kind of like pull you in, and it helps to smoothen it out as well. So that leads us into the drum beat. That's the drum beat in the verse. What I'll do, let's play the drums and the bass elements just so we can hear what I added in to support what the guitar was already doing. And yeah, let's hear the verse. So something that I like to do quite a lot, especially with percussion, is I'll take like a cymbal hit or something like that, then I'll add delay to it. And so for me, that helps kind of, transition into a new part. And it just helps to kind of add some sustain to that cymbal. So what we've got here, standard ride hit, but then I can see I've added automation to add reverb. Makes it a bit more spacey. And now I've added some delay onto it. So I always find that's a nice way if you're coming into more of like a breakdown section, or you just want to kind of open it up a bit, but you still want to kind of have a percussion hit at the beginning to kind of help that new section kind of begin and have a little bit of impact. Just use like one hit, so a cymbal or a kick or something like that. Drench it in reverb, put some delay, and it really just helps create a nice kind of wash over that section. And then I've added a reversed cymbal sound to help lead that in. Let's listen to that as a whole. So yeah, I just think it really helps to smoothen out that change between the verse going to the pre-chorus. What I've added percussion-wise for the chorus is a little tambourine, some nice reverb on there, and that would be reinforcing the snare hits. It's helping add a different texture to the already reverbed snares that we've got there. Yeah, it really helps it cut through by having that tambourine on there. Another thing actually, with the drums, and I'm sure I would have copied this from, I think maybe Mount Eden, way back when, again, going back to the dubstep eras. And I'm sure some of his songs, what I noticed is, say the first snare that you would hear, that would be one sample. And then the second snare you hear, it was a different one. And so for me, I was like, man, I'd never thought of that at the time, of changing your snare sample or your snare sound during a beat. And so that's something, like another little thing I always like to chuck into a song just to add some variation to it. So what I done, it was with the reverb snares. So instead of them being triggered every time we hear the snare sound, it's going to be every other. So that just creates a nice little variation for the snares. Another little thing that I've added into the percussion, a little shaker. So say if I played just the standard drum beat from the chorus. Now if I bring in the snares and then the cymbals. And now let's bring in the reverb tam and the shaker. I always find adding in some actually like live recorded stuff to your percussion, it can really make all of it feel like it's maybe a real person. You know, you may have recorded a real drummer. Even here, you know, I've kind of played this in and the velocities are varied. So it's all these like different little tricks and methods that you can apply to make it feel real. I still think, you know, in a way you will be hearing maybe that same sample a couple times, whereas if you're recording a real drummer, every time they hit, every one is going to be slightly different from the other. And so that's the thing which we don't get from using a sample library. And so the final thing to look at now would be this nice ambience recording that I've done. I've got a Zoom little handy recorder, and I went to the field that I filmed the video for my friend, and I just had the little Zoom with me, and I was just recording the ambience from the field there, and it captured some nice little bird tweets. So it's very subtle, and I've got it mixed quite low in the song. But I like the idea of putting that in there just because I know how this song originated from recording this video for my friend. And so, yeah, I thought that'd just be a nice little element to add into it. And it's always nice adding in these ambience recordings just because the texture you can get from them is just very, very nice, very cool. And stuff like that I find just super relaxing, you know. So whether it be, you know, like the sound of wind or the sound of rain on like a tin roof or waves, you know, I could listen to that stuff for a long, long time. Cool. So I think that is all the different elements of the song. So this one, yeah, not too much going on. Got the main guitar parts. And so a lot of the times I've got the main kind of rhythm guitar panned left and the lead panned right, just to create that nice stereo width. When the lead does come in during the chorus, the lead is bang in the middle and the guitars are super wide to give it room. All the extra synthy elements I added to it, they're just either copying the melody of the lead guitar or they're just an octave above. The two pads that I made, really nice for adding different textures. Bass-wise, it's just following the guitars, and the sub bass is just mimicking what the bass guitar's doing. And then, yeah, percussion is really just a kick snare, got some cymbal work, a couple elements which are live recorded in there to tie it all together. And then, yeah, some nice kind of bird tweeting ambience. And that makes up the song. Cool, so that's the production breakdown of my song Sunfeel. I hope you found it interesting or picked up any cool little tips. If not, just thank you for watching it. And yeah, check out my new song, Sunfeel.